You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, sports fans! Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am Jacob Valk, and there's a lot to get to today. Obviously, the McCaffrey extension, Hank Steinbrenner passing away. I'll also give you the next four on my big board. We're into the second round now, and I'll give you the Miami Marlins Mount Rushmore. It was a lot harder than you'd think it would be, but obviously I have to start with McCaffrey. And I really like this deal. I understand the logic of the don't pay running backs people. And I'm slowly, sorta, kinda getting to that point. Not really, but I really understand the logic. You know, I saw what happened with Le'Veon Bell. I saw what happened with David Johnson. I saw what happened with Todd Gurley. I'm learning from it. But McCaffrey is just a different player. Christian McCaffrey can do things on a football field that very few others can. There is no better pass-catching back in the NFL than Christian McCaffrey. In fact, you'd be hard-pressed to find a better running back in NFL history that can do both. Catch the ball out of the backfield and run the ball out of the backfield as well as McCaffrey. The great running backs throughout history, you know, they were good pass catchers. They weren't great pass catchers. Now, I understand that the NFL has changed to the point where everyone should be able to catch the ball. Even some quarterbacks need to be able to catch the ball. Cough, cough, Nick Foles, Philly, Philly. But as far as pass-catching running backs go throughout history, you'd be hard-pressed to find a better one than McCaffrey. Who's as dominant as him? PPR fantasy beast Christian McCaffrey. Him and James White. In my keeper league last year, my friend Brian had McCaffrey on his team. He only had one loss the whole year. It was, to me, the second week of the season. He ended up winning the whole thing. Primarily because he had Christian McCaffrey. He had other players too, but McCaffrey was the seminal reason. Just watch a Panthers game and you can see how transcendent he is. He can do things that very few other running backs can. I keep going back to the pass catching, but it's what separates him from all the other running backs in the league. When it comes to running between the tackles, there are probably better running backs than him. But as far as getting out into open space and taking advantage of that open space, there's no one better than McCaffrey. But now to the notion of never pay a running back. You know, I understand the point. I promise you I do. And there's even a part of me that agrees with it. But the majority of me disagrees with it. You know, I don't believe in devaluing a position that touches the ball 20 times a game. And in the case of McCaffrey, 25 times a game. You can't devalue that position entirely. You want to tell me that you can win without a star running back? That is true. The Chiefs did it. The Patriots did it. The Colts did it. The Packers did it. It's been done for time immemorial. But you can also win without a star quarterback. The Eagles did it. The Redskins did it. The Ravens did it. You can't devalue the position entirely. What you can say is that you can manufacture a good one. And that's been done all throughout NFL history. Peyton Hillis being the poster child. If you have a good offensive line and you have a coach that knows how to use them, yeah, they can make a pedestrian running back look really, really good. But the thing is that they can't make them look great for an extended period of time. That's the thing. Guys like Emmitt Smith, Barry Sanders, Walter Payton, Gale Sayers, Jim Brown. I understand that a couple of those guys had short careers, but for a substantial period of time, they were great. The one-hit wonders are just that. Great for one season. When you look at a guy like McCaffrey, he's been great ever since he stepped on an NFL field. This will be his 4th season coming up. In his 3 years in the league, he has been incredible. Now, his rookie year, he wasn't a great runner. He was better as a pass catcher. But you saw the talent. You saw that this guy could play. Maybe not as a traditional running back, but as a pass-catching running back. His sophomore year, he changed everything. Rushed for 1,000 yards and 7 touchdowns to go along with over 100 catches for 867 yards and 6 touchdowns. And then last year, McCaffrey was the whole offense. People saying it was Kyle Allen that was keeping the Panthers afloat. No, it was McCaffrey. It was Christian McCaffrey. And then towards the end of the season, as McCaffrey's legs were starting to give out on him because he was being used so much, the Panthers tailed off. It was never Kyle Allen. Kyle Allen is a fine backup game manager type. Alright, that's all Kyle Allen is. He's not a great quarterback by any stretch. It's not even close. Now, if you want to tell me that you're concerned about how McCaffrey's going to hold up, you certainly can. He's been used a lot. And it's fair to wonder if he'll be able to keep up that workload. But I think that's part of the reason why the Panthers went out and were so aggressive in free agency. Signing Teddy Bridgewater, signing Robbie Anderson. They want to spread the wealth. They don't want McCaffrey doing it all. Let McCaffrey be the focal point of the offense, but if he's touching the ball 25 times a game, he will flame out. You know, it's not like quarterback where you're not getting hit every play. When you're a running back, you're getting hit every play. Whether you're a blocker, you're getting hit. A runner, you're getting hit. A pass catcher, you're getting hit. Those guys get hit constantly. Yeah, it's fair to wonder if McCaffrey's going to be able to keep this up for a long period of time. which is part of the reason why this deal was only for 4 years, I think. If you look at total value, this is not the richest deal in NFL history for a running back. That is still Ezekiel Elliott, 6 years, $90 million. But when you look at AAV, McCaffrey cleared Elliott by $1 million. You can't tell me that McCaffrey hasn't earned this contract. What, you're going to let him walk just because he's a running back? Then what's the point of even having a running back? Seriously. Let's just have fullbacks back there blocking every play, and let's let the quarterback throw it every play. I mean, that's just ridiculous. If we're not going to reward their good play, what's the point in having them? You know, it does take skill in this league to be successful. If you were to put me behind the Cowboys' offensive line, I would not rush for 1,000 yards. I wouldn't even rush for 500 yards. I'd be lucky to get out of there with 5 yards. It takes talent in this league to be successful. Talent wins over scheme in the NFL. I've said that 100 times. I think the better way to look at it is don't pay good running backs a lot of money, only pay the great ones. McCaffrey is great. Ezekiel Elliott is great. Saquon Barkley is great. Nick Chubb is great. Derrick Henry is great. Those guys deserve to be paid. The Marlon Macks and David Johnsons of the world are really, really good. David Johnson was great once upon a time, not anymore. Do those guys deserve a big contract right now? No, they don't. And if you want to tell me that you shouldn't draft a running back in the first round, you can find better value in the second or third day of the draft, alright. I can understand that. More often than not, that's true. I mean, when you have a generational talent like a Saquon Barkley or an Ezekiel Elliott sitting there, yeah, you've got to take them. But I'll just take this draft class for an example. If you don't want to take DeAndre Swift because you feel like a guy like Cam Akers can be just as good as him and you can get him in the second or third round, okay, sure. I can understand that. If you want to tell me that a guy like Keyshawn Vaughn can give you comparable results to a guy like Swift and you can get Vaughn in day 3 of the draft, sure. That's fine. Just don't devalue the position entirely. If you want to devalue it partially, I can understand that. But you've got to be able to identify talent. Pay the talent. Don't pay the hangers-on. I think that's the best way of looking at it. McCaffrey is not a hanger-on. Christian McCaffrey is one of the best running backs in the NFL. You can't tell me that he doesn't deserve this contract. All in all, great move for the Panthers. They're set up really well for the future with Rule, Bridgewater, Robbie Anderson, McCaffrey, and a top 10 pick. It's okay if you devalue the running back position a little bit, but don't devalue it wholly. It still takes skill in this league to be successful. Alright. On to Hank Steinbrenner passing away today at the age of 63. This was due to a long-running illness, but not the coronavirus. Thank God. Hank has been a silent partner for most of his tenure as Yankees owner. In 2008, he couldn't keep his mouth shut. Said a lot of things that ticked a lot of people off. Then someone got in his ear. Maybe it was his brother. Maybe it was one of his sisters. Maybe it was George. Told him to keep his mouth shut, and he did. You know, at the Gerrit Cole press conference, Hank Steinbrenner wasn't even there. It was Hal representing the Steinbrenner family. I can't even tell you the last time I saw Hank Steinbrenner at an event. I can't remember seeing him at a retired number ceremony, an old timers day, anything. So now Hal has pretty much full control. The way that the Yankees were set up, Hal Steinbrenner was chairman, Hank Steinbrenner was co-chairman, and the sisters, Jennifer and Jessica, were vice chairwomen. Now it's probably going to be just Hal as chairman and managing general partner, which he already is. So this is Hal Steinbrenner's team now. The buck stops with him, just as it stopped with George. When George Steinbrenner was around, you knew who was in charge. In fact, even when he passed, you knew who was still in charge. The boss loomed large over the Yankees, even in death. Hell, in the right field bleachers, there's the mural to George. Without him, the Yankees as we know it don't exist. The evil empire isn't a thing. They're not signing every free agent in the world. The history that led Gerrit Cole to the Yankees, that doesn't exist without George Steinbrenner. And Hal and Hank carried it over for the most part. Have they been perfect owners? Absolutely not. The mid-20-teens, George would have never allowed that. George Steinbrenner would not have given a damn about the luxury tax. He'd have said, spend whatever you need to. I'm tired of the losing. I remember after the Gerrit Cole press conference, Randy Levine was being interviewed by some people from the Yes Network, and one of the questions they asked was, and I'll paraphrase because I don't remember it exactly, do you see this as a vintage George move? His response was, no, I see this as a Yankees move. No, that was a George move. Hal and Hank Steinbrenner were very opposed to bringing in big free agents. With the exception of 2014, when they went out and signed McCann, Ellsbury, Beltran, and Tanaka, they have steered clear of free agency. And that has ticked a lot of Yankee fans off, especially when their teams were bad. Alright, some of those teams in the middle of this past decade were really tough teams to watch. As a Yankees fan, you get used to winning every single year. I'm an Islanders fan. a Jets fan and a Nets fan. I'm used to seeing my teams lose. I need the Yankees to be successful in order to give me some kind of sanity as a sports fan. And let's be honest, there was a substantial period of time where they were not successful. Even when they made the playoffs in 2015, they limped in and they didn't score a run in that wild card game. Thank God I got sick for it. I'd have gotten sick watching it in the Bronx. Now look, sometimes it's better to defer. It's better to not sign anyone. When there were a bunch of Yankee fans screaming for them to sign Bryce Harper and/or Manny Machado, I didn't want him. I remember I was having lunch with the old Beyond the Game crew, Brandon, Dominic, Eric, and Nick. And I looked Eric dead in the eyes and I said to him, your Yankee takes are some of the dumbest I've ever heard. You want them to sign Manny Machado? Are you kidding me? Where are you playing him? Why are you trading Andujar? Granted, probably could have phrased that a little better. But, look, the simple fact is you had a bunch of Yankee fans that wanted Machado, you had a bunch of Yankee fans that didn't. George Steinbrenner would have signed Manny Machado in a minute. George Steinbrenner would have signed Bryce Harper in a minute. He believed in buying championships. Sometimes it worked. 2009, you can make the argument that he bought that championship. Alright, they don't win that World Series without CC Sabathia, AJ Burnett, and Mark Teixeira, and Alex Rodriguez, and Hideki Matsui, and Derek Jeter, who had gotten a huge contract, Georgie Posada, big contract. Yeah, you can make the argument that they bought the 09 World Series. More often than not, though, it doesn't work. You know, there were a bunch of people that were getting on Hal and Hank for not spending money. Especially going into last offseason. There was a concern among some Yankee fans that they weren't going to break the bank for a Gerrit Cole or a Steven Strasburg. Because the Steinbrenners historically have been concerned with the luxury tax. It wasn't until Brian Cashman was given the go-ahead by Hal Steinbrenner to exceed the luxury tax that the Yankees got their guy. And with that brought a return to George's Yankees. Gerrit Cole gets it. Cole understands what it means to be a Yankee. That's why he brought the sign. Alright? He just understands it. The Yankees are held to a higher standard than every team in sports. A winning record isn't enough. Making the playoffs isn't enough. Winning the pennant isn't enough. You have to win the World Series. I understand that you're not going to do that every year. But it's been far too long since the Yankees have won. Over a decade. That's an eternity in Yankees land. And Hal and Hank realized that. And they gave the go-ahead. It was Hal more than Hank, but Hank was still there. He still deserves some credit. They gave the go-ahead to Brian Cashman to offer Gerrit Cole a record-breaking contract. I think it's going to work for him. I think the Yankees will win numerous World Series with Gerrit Cole. It's a shame that Hank won't be alive to see it, but I know that he'll be looking down at them with his father. Alright, now it's time for numbers 33 to 36 on my 2019 NFL Draft Big Board. They are J.K. Dobbins, Jonathan Taylor, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and Michael Pittman Jr. I did not plan to have all these skill position guys together. That was sheer coincidence. But it just speaks to the level of depth that we have this year at running back and wide receiver. It's why I've said for a long time, I don't want the Jets to take a wide receiver at 11. They can get better value down the line. And I'm telling you, DeAndre Swift, who is the consensus best running back in this draft, and a lot of people have a first-round grade on, including me, I promise you, he's going to slip. Is he going to slip out of the first round entirely? I don't know. But I'll tell you, there's a chance of it. Dobbins does everything you want a running back to do. He has really quick feet, is a really good route runner, can be physical when he needs to be, and has good speed. He doesn't have elite speed, and sometimes he gets a case of the fumbles. Late in the season, he started developing some bad habits, and he lost the football a lot. But that is something that can be worked on. The old drill of whacking the guy with pool noodles still works. I like J.K. Dobbins a lot. I've seen some mock drafts saying that the Jets could take him in the second round. I'd be a little surprised if he fell to him. The Jets have the 16th pick in the second round. So that's, 48th overall, if I'm doing my math correctly? I don't see Dobbins lasting until then, but I'll tell you, whoever gets J.K. Dobbins is going to have themselves a really good player. And I'll tell you this. I don't know when, but maybe it'll be May 1st. Yeah, I like that. May 1st. I'm going to give you a fantasy football breakdown of this draft. I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to do it, but I know that I'm going to break down a lot of the guys who landed in really good spots and can be expected to produce next year for your fantasy team, and I'll tell you guys who you should avoid. It's going to be very, very fun. Yeah, the Jets do have the 48th overall pick this year. Okay, good. I can still do math. Jonathan Taylor is another well-rounded running back. You'd be hard-pressed to find anything that he did wrong. He's just not a good blitz protector. The reason why he's so low is because, again, I think he's going to slip. It just speaks to the level of depth that we have at running back this year. Jonathan Taylor could very easily be taken in the first round. If we were to put Jonathan Taylor in last year's class, he's better than Josh Jacobs as a college prospect. Yeah, he's short. I understand that. So is Christian McCaffrey. So is Marshawn Lynch. I don't think it's fair to say that a guy is too short so he can't play in the NFL. That ship has sailed. It's all about athleticism now, not power. Having said that, though, if I'm taller than you, I'm 5'9". If I'm taller than you, That's going to scare some people off. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire is 5'7". That's kind of dicey. He's not a good pass catcher. He doesn't have great speed. What he does well, and this is why he'll be taken high, is he's a freakish athlete. This guy can stop on a dime, he can cut, he can move, he can spin. He is a fantastic athlete. Probably the most athletic running back in this draft. And he needs it because, again, he's really, really short. I understand I just went on a diatribe on don't base running backs on size, but there is a limit to that. There just is. I feel like I'm the limit. If you're taller than me, size doesn't matter. If you're shorter than me, yeah, I'd like you to be a little bit taller. What's that song? I wish I was a baller, wish I was a little bit taller. I'm a poet and I don't even know it. In my college fantasy football league last year, which I won, I drafted Michael Pittman Jr. late. And I dropped him early. I don't remember why. Man, that was dumb. I should not have done that. This guy exploded onto the scene as USC's go-to wide receiver. His production jump was probably the best out of any wide receiver in the nation. He caught over 100 passes last year for just under 1,300 yards and 11 touchdowns. There were a lot of people who were saying that Pittman would slip to the third round and would immediately be a steal for any team. I don't see how Pittman slips to the third round. Mid-second, I'll give you. Third round? That would be criminal. That's what I love most about Pittman, his production. He does remind me a lot of Courtland Sutton, makes a lot of tough catches, has really good size. You want your wide receivers to be big. You want them to be able to go up in one-on-one plays and catch those jump balls. Sometimes you just want to lob it up to your wide receiver and have him make a play. That's what Courtland Sutton did for the Broncos, and that's what Michael Pittman is going to do for whatever team drafts him. You want to tell me that you don't like his physicality? Yeah, he could be a little more physical. I'm with you there. He tries to use his size when he's downfield as opposed to when he's getting off the block. But I think Michael Pittman is going to be a really good wide receiver immediately in this league. Alright, it is time for another Mount Rushmore. This one was a lot tougher than you'd think. The Miami Marlins. Well, Jacob, how is that tough? Well, for starters, they don't have a long history. So when you're looking at their stats, the numbers don't jump out at you. Well, then you go by dominance. Okay. Dontrell Willis at one point was insanely dominant for the Marlins. Are you going to put the D train on this list? Are you going to put Josh Johnson on their Mount Rushmore? No, you're not. The correct Mount Rushmore is Giancarlo Stanton, Josh Beckett, Miguel Cabrera, and Ricky Nolasco. Now that can change in 30 years. If the guys who Jeter brought in pan out, and odds are at least one of them is. I mean, look, I think more of them will than one, obviously. I understand what Jeter did. He tore it down and built it back up. Yeah, it's a tough rebuild, and obviously this year is going to set him back a little bit because they're not getting the reps that they really needed, but Look, I still think the Marlins are set up really, really well for the future. Are they going to be a future dynasty? Probably not, but I think they can be a perennial playoff threat for a long time. Their young core is insane. Maybe there's some Yankee bias in putting Stanton number 1, but I really think he earned it. Insanely dominant with the Marlins, leads him in home runs, leads him in RBIs, won an MVP for him, and hit 59 home runs and 132 RBIs that year. Doesn't get much better than that. You want to tell me he had no playoff success with the Marlins? Yeah, you're right. And look, that's the knock on Stanton. Hasn't been great in the playoffs. He's getting paid a lot of money. And he needs to produce, there's no question. But I still have faith in Stanton. Last year he was hurt. Give him a chance. Whenever we come back and see baseball this year, I think Stanton will be fine. I really, really do. He won't win an MVP. He's not even the most valuable player in the Yankees outfield. That's Judge. But I promise you, he'll be a really good Yankee for a long time. That's what drove me nuts about that trade. The people saying, oh, we're taking on the contract. He's not worth it. Blah, blah, blah. Are you joking? This is Giancarlo Stanton we're talking about. Stanton was the best hitter for the Yankees in 2018. Hit 38 homers, 100 RBIs. Yeah, he got hurt last year. Don't punish him for it. Yeah, he has injury concerns. Yeah, he's going to tail off at the end of his contract. So is Garrett Cole. Every free agent tails off at the end of their contract. They end up being paid for past production. That's how free agency works. The Yankees stole Stanton from the Marlins. I mean, come on. Starlin Castro, Jorge Guzman, and Jose Devers? You'd do that trade 100 times out of 100 if you're the Yankees. Come on. Get real. Josh Beckett killed the Yankees in 2003. Absolutely killed me to put him on this list, but he definitely deserved it. Was World Series MVP. Went 1-1 with a 1.1 ERA. And that one loss that he had in Game 3, he should not have lost. That was a game that the Marlins bullpen blew. They gave up 4 runs in the 9th inning. Thank you, Chad Fox and Braden Looper. Game 6, though, he comes back and pitches a complete game shutout to win the Marlins the World Series in one of the most painful losses in Yankee history, and certainly the most painful loss that I have ever seen as a Yankee fan. Miguel Cabrera, another guy who was insanely dominant with the Marlins. The thing is, though, no one realized it because he was playing on such bad Marlins teams. Then when he got to Detroit and started playing with good teams, hey, look, this guy Miguel Cabrera is really good. Well, the simple fact is, with the Marlins, Cabrera averaged 28 home runs and 105 RBIs to go with a .313 average. Doesn't get much more dominant than that. And Ricky Nolasco leads the Marlins in wins and strikeouts. Truth be told, I did not know that until I looked it up. I would have guessed probably Beckett or Pavano. I would not have guessed Ricky Nolasco. But he's at the top of their list, and he's worthy of the last spot on their Mount Rushmore. You want to watch a great YouTube video on the Marlins. It's a collapse video for SB Nation that they did on the Marlins. Really, really good. Goes really well into their history and how tragic it is. And obviously when you think of tragic Marlins, you think of Jose Fernandez. Man, that hit me hard when he died. He would have been on this list if he was still around. Easily. Not even close. Tomorrow, hopefully a happier show. No more deaths. Please. Come on. Let's get some happiness going. The pursuit of happiness. For goodness sake, if it's good enough for Thomas Jefferson, it's good enough for me. Until tomorrow, I am Jacob Valk saying that my alarm clock has better hands than Bill Russell.